Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the news at 10, broadcasting on Channels Television live from Lagos. Here are a few pictures from our eyewitness reporters across the country. Let's begin with this one from Apapa in Lagos, showing a canal between Boundary Market and Ajegunle. Apapa, I guess those pictures will come much later. So moving on, churches in Nigeria should give support to President Buhari's anti-corruption agenda. That's coming from the primate of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, Most Reverend Nicholas Oko, who also believes that the president's commitments to peace, stability and accountability across the country should be encouraged rather than criticized. Archbishop Oko described the attitude of some public office holders as a huge disappointment to the country, noting that Nigeria has garnered enough international support to enable her address the rot in the system.
The church has always been in the vanguard of anti-corruption crusade, preaching and teaching that people should live right. When you live right, there will be no need for what we for anybody to set up any panel or to set up a court against anybody. If you take what belongs to you and I take what belongs to me, then there's no cheating. But a situation where somebody will take what belongs to everybody and appropriate it, and then others are deprived, that's a bad situation. Definitely, Nigerians will appreciate putting the matter of Boko Haram behind us, because it has affected our economy, it has affected our friendship, it has affected our movement, everything. So whatever will help us to put Boko Haram behind us, Nigerians will very much appreciate it. And we do wish the government well.
Post offices, especially in rural areas across the country, would now be converted to IT and financial transaction centers. So says the Ministry of Communications Technology. The ministry's presentation to the president dwelled heavily on the potential of the IT sector, which it says contributes 10% to the country's gross domestic product, but could grow to 20% if some proposals from the ministry are approved and implemented. Receiving the brief from the permanent secretary of the ministry, President Muhammadu Buhari gave a nod to the idea, directing that all pending proposals for the development of the country's IT sector be brought forward for consideration and approval.
The president was concerned about the quality of service that Nigerians are receiving regarding, telecom, all our GSM and all telecom operators. And the president offered that he's very concerned about the whole issue of double taxation and right of way that is hindering the investment in IT infrastructure, and that he will personally champion this. The president was stunned about the potential of the sector to generate revenue. We talked to things like the sale of spectrum. We talked to issues around stamp duties and so many unaddressed sources of revenue, and he wanted us to bring it up quickly so that we can run with it. The president was concerned about the liquidation of Nitel. He is not opposed to its privatization, but want us to bring up a kind of a memo or a briefing memo on how the whole transaction was undertaken, so that he can be sure as a government that Nigeria was really not shortchanged.
Under the transformation agenda of President Goodluck Jonathan, running the economy and improving the living standards of citizens was a priority. Privatization was also key. There was focus on some major sectors such as security, infrastructure, agriculture, manufacturing, education, health and ICT. But there are very strong indications that the Buhari administration may jettison the Goodluck Jonathan transformation agenda and develop new economic policies for the country. In line with this, the president has asked that the 2016 budget preparation be put on hold until new economic policies are formulated. The president's focus will be creation of more jobs for Nigerians, making the manufacturing sector more vibrant. Let's discuss this now. I'm being joined on the news at 10 by an economist, Dr. Boniface Chizia. Dr. Chizia, thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you, Amarachi, for having me. Yes.
Is it a good idea to do away with the policies of the past administration?
Well, you know, policies are decision rules. And you shouldn't expect somebody to come and adopt someone's policies. And so, in fact, the expectation is that a person that comes on board should look at some policies. But I would expect that you look at the policies on ground and then you see, you know, to what extent you can run with them. And so you might not just come and throw out the baby with the bathwater. So you look at the policies and examine them and then see how you are going to improve on them and make them more acceptable to you and so on and so forth. You mustn't try and reinvent the wheel. I think that's what you have to say, because sometimes there's a limit, you know, to the extent, you know, you can begin to innovate and change these matters.
You know, one major problem that we've had in this country is continuation of policies, and especially those of the predecessors. A new government comes in and new policies are made. The other things that are in progress have been truncated and so on. Does this also truncate our development? Well, I'd say that
you know, people out there, for instance, who want to come to Nigeria to undertake investments, one of the things that should be of concern to you is that to what extent do we have stability and continuity of policy? That's going to be important to you, because the policy on ground, based on which, you know, context, you know, you took your decisions, you want to be assured to what extent, you know, those policies are going to be there, you know, when you get there. So if you have policy discontinuity, then certainly it's an albatross, which I think that this country should be very careful, you know, riding with. You know, but then, you know, having said that, if somebody comes new on board, then the person is challenged to look at those policies on ground and see to what extent, you know, those policies are acceptable to him. But you mustn't just go and change the policies just for the sake of changing the policies. I think that's something we mustn't do.
And now the president has said the budget preparation for 2016 should be put on hold. Won't this affect the budgets? Wouldn't that mean that the budgets will be delayed in 2016?
Well, I think that what I heard initially was that members of the National Assembly were saying that the budget 2015 has not been implemented. You know, that's what I heard, and I said to myself that budget 2015 is dead. You know, and what one would expect is that I was expecting that President Buhari will come in, and then there should be a supplementary budget. You know, because then you don't expect to run. Okay, you can do recurrent expenses. I think the law allows the president to do recurrent expenses. But if you want to do any capital expenditure, you have issues. And that's why, for instance, most of the National Assembly, you know, they're up in arms and saying that the constituency projects, you know, are not being implemented. And as far as they are concerned, you know, that will drop off negatively on their stand with their constituents. You know, so I think there are issues. You mustn't say, look, we'll put on hold and we don't have a budget. You know, I think that in a more advanced environment, you know, you don't run the country without having a budget. The budget is a blueprint based on which you articulate and say, this is direction, this is the policy, this is how we're going to go. These are the things we're going to do within a budget year.
Dr. Boniface Chizia, thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you, Amarachi, for having me.
And reactions may have trailed the planned 2016 census, which is expected to cost over 15 billion naira. But the essence of the exercise may be well overrated. The immediate past governor of Lagos State, Mr. Pt.2 Fashola, says data is key for Nigeria's development. He believes for focused and purposeful governance, leaders must have accurate population and data so as to give needed services.
In all of our life experience, I don't think that we can fairly say that we have recorded an accurate data of the number of people that we are. And from the people who did our first census, who are now credited with owning up that the figures were falsified, the onus is upon us to get it right in 2016. I say this because data, in my view, is important. If the work of government is to provide service to people, its efficiency will be determined by its knowledge of how many people need service. And therefore, without accurate census figures, it may seem that we are not determined to head in the path of development. So the numbers have changed from 160 million to 170 million, And sometimes you now hear 180 million. But that is a matter for us to take seriously, for us to play our roles when the time comes. Because when census time comes, some people will say they are going back to their states. Census is not about where you come from, it's about where you live.
Former Governor of Lagos State, Pt.2 Fashola. When the News at 10 returns, the Nigerian Stock Exchange pays over 7 million naira to investors who incurred losses in the stock market. We'll have details of business news. Please join us again.